10.2 Managed Communications. Managed communications is the process of ensuring timely and appropriate collection, creation, distribution, storage, retrieval, management, monitoring and the ultimate disposition of project information. The key benefit of this process is that it enables an efficient and effective information flow between the project team and the stakeholders. This process is performed throughout the project. The managed communication process identifies all aspects of effective communication, including choice of appropriate technologies, methods and techniques. In addition, it should allow for flexibility in the communication activities, allowing adjustments in the methods and techniques to accommodate the changing needs of stakeholders and the project. And that's from PMBOK Guide, page 379. This process goes beyond the distribution of relevant information and seeks to ensure that the information being communicated to project stakeholders has been appropriately generated and formatted and received by the intended audience. It also provides opportunities for stakeholders to make requests for further information, clarification and discussion. Creating a communications plan is not a once-off activity. The communications plan should be used frequently and continually revised to ensure it is up to date and accurate. I was called into an audit of a project some years ago and I found a number of security issues. For example, several contractors had been hired for the first few months and were given access to the computers. This is standard practice. However, the project was now in its fourth year and I discovered that the contractor's login access had never been removed. Then I audited the communication plan. It was full of errors. But the biggest one I discovered was that a manager who had been a key stakeholder when the communication plan had been created had left the company in the project's first months and gone to work for a competitor. This was not seen as an issue at the time because the project was still in planning and he hadn't been involved much. But I discovered that he was still on the communication plan. On the plan, all reports and minutes were directed to his personal email account, i.e. not his corporate account, which had been discontinued. And this still astounds me. He had never been removed from the plan or the email group list. This means that a senior manager with a competing organisation had been receiving all communications about this project for 4 years. And guess what? The competing organisation released a similar product to the market. Legal action was planned for IP theft, but the lawyers advised that the manager had never signed a non-disclosure agreement. But worse than that, the lawyers said that the court's view would be that he hadn't stolen the information, he had been given the information. Please keep checking your communication plan and keep it up to date. Techniques and considerations for effective communications management. Sender-receiver models, which we covered earlier in this module. Incorporating feedback loops provides opportunities for interaction, participation and removes barriers to effective communication. But what is a communication feedback loop? Note that this is different from communication feedback. Communication feedback means coaching, mentoring, performance reviews and so on. But a feedback loop is when someone is talking to you and you interact with the speaker to reassure them that you understand what they're saying. You can nod your head and give verbal assurances. However, the best feedback you can give, especially in the case of a complicated instruction, or one that I particularly like, is to paraphrase back what the speaker said. Simply repeating an instruction that you heard doesn't prove that you understood the message. It just means that you have received it. It's like a parrot can repeat a message, it doesn't understand it. But when you say it back in your own words and the meaning is the same, then there can be very little doubt. For example, if I were to say to you something that sounds quite simple, such as, I need you to pick up the sales manager before the meeting, this could mean, I would like you to collect the sales manager with a car, or the sales manager has fallen over, would you help get her back up onto her feet before the meeting? Or the sales manager is feeling depressed, would you cheer her up before the meeting? Or I would like you to practice your fireman's lift drill and carry the sales manager to the meeting. And therefore, unless you say something like, so you want me to collect her in the company car, I can't be sure that you won't arrive at the meeting with the sales manager draped around your shoulders. Other techniques and considerations for effective communications management include choice of media. Decisions about application of communications artifacts to meet specific project needs, such as when to communicate in writing versus orally, when to prepare an informal memo versus a formal report, and when to use push-pull options and choice of appropriate technology. The writing style, appropriate use of active versus passive voice, sentence structure and word choice. An example of active versus passive voice, a passive sentence is, the level of detail was the result of hard work from the team. An active version of this sentence could be, hard work from the team ensured a high level of detail. Active sentences are more powerful, but they can be overdone. You need passive sentences too. It takes you to strike the right balance, and it takes some experience for that. It's like if you think about watching a comedy show from the US and they play recorded laughter after every single sentence, even sentences aren't funny. So make sure you don't end up with an all active sentence report, or all passive of course. Meeting requirements, preparing an agenda, inviting essential participants and ensuring they attend. Dealing with conflicts within the meeting or resulting from inadequate follow-up of meetings and actions or attendance of the wrong people. Presentations, awareness of the impact of body language and design of physical aids. Facilitation, building consensus and overcoming obstacles such as difficult group dynamics and maintaining interest and enthusiasm among group members. Active listening. Listening actively involves acknowledging, clarifying, confirming, understanding and removing barriers that adversely affect comprehension. Manage communication inputs. Number 1, project management plan. And components we want to look at are the resource management plan, which describes the communications that are needed for management of team or physical resources. Communications management plan, which describes how project communications will be planned, structured, monitored and controlled. Stakeholder engagement plan, for how stakeholders will be engaged through appropriate communication strategies. Input number 2, project documents. Documents that could be considered as inputs for this process include the change log, which is used to communicate changes and approved, deferred and rejected change requests to the impacted stakeholders. Issue log, information about issues is communicated to impacted stakeholders. Lessons learned register. Lessons learned earlier in the project with regard to managing communications that can be applied to later phases in the project to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the communication and communications process. Quality report. Information. The quality report includes quality issues, product improvements and process improvements. This information is forwarded to the others who can take corrective actions in order to achieve the project quality expectations. The risk report. This has information on the sources of overall project risk together with summary information on identified individual major project risks. This information is communicated to risk owners and other impacted stakeholders. A stakeholder register that identifies individuals, groups or organisations that will need various types of information. Input number 3, work performance reports. Please remember the work performance refers to how well or how badly the project is progressing. It is not concerned with how well individuals are performing on the team. In this process, we will use a communications management plan to circulate the information to the appropriate stakeholders. What information is in work performance reports? Earned value graphs and information, trend lines and forecasts, reserve burn down charts, defect histograms, contract performance information and risk summaries. The PMBOK guide is not prescriptive about what's in them or about how they should be presented. For example, they can be presented as dashboards, heat reports, stoplight charts or other fancy presentations useful for creating awareness and generating decisions and actions. Input number 4, enterprise environmental factors. And here we're looking at organisational culture, political climate and governance framework, personnel and administration policies, stakeholder risk thresholds, established communication channels, tools and systems, global, regional or local trends and practices or habits and geographical distribution of facilities and resources. Input number 5 is the organisational process assets. These should be corporate policies and procedures for social media, ethics and security, corporate policies and procedures for issue risk management and data management, organisational communication requirements, standardised guidelines for development, exchange, storage and retrieval of information, and historical information from previous projects, including the Lessons Learned repository. I will remind you again, the Lessons Learned repository holds information learned on previous projects, and a Lessons Learned registry holds the lessons learned on this project. Managed communications tools and techniques. Number 1, communications technology. Factors that influence the technology include whether the team is co-located, the confidentiality of any information that needs to be shared, resources available to the team members, and how the organisation's culture influences the way in which meetings and discussions are normally conducted. Tools and techniques. Number 2, communication methods. The choice of communication method should allow flexibility in the event that the membership of the stakeholder communication. Tools and techniques. Number 2, communication methods. The choice of communication methods should allow flexibility in the event that the membership of the stakeholder community changes or their needs and expectations change. Tools and techniques. Number 3, communication skills. Communication techniques that can be used for this process would include communication competence, a combination of tailored communication skills that considers factors such as clarity of purpose in the key messages, effective relationships, and information sharing and leadership behaviours. Feedback. Feedback is information about reactions to communications, a deliverable or a situation. Feedback supports interactive communication between the project manager, team and all other project stakeholders. The PMBOK guide is a little confused in this, but if you remember that this type of communication means coaching, mentoring and negotiation, and not the feedback loop that I mentioned earlier. Non-verbal. Examples of non-verbal communications include appropriate body language to transmit meaning through gestures, tone of voice and facial expressions, not frowning or folding arms, but instead leaning forward, smiling, nodding. Mirroring and eye contact are also important techniques. Mirroring can take a whole lesson to explain it properly. It's part of a set of techniques called Neuro-Linguistic Programming, or more commonly NLP. It sounds a bit scary, but in its simplest form, it means copying what the other person is doing. If the other person tilts her head to one side, sits up straight, folds her arms, unfolds her arms, nods, or whatever, you do the same thing a short time after they do it. And eye contact can be good if used with caution, but as I mentioned before, some people dislike eye contact, and if you keep staring into their eyes, it just totally creeps them out. The team members should be aware of how they express themselves, both through what they say and through what they don't say. Presentations. This is formal delivery of information and or documentation. Clear and effective presentations of project information to relevant stakeholders can include progress reports and information updates to stakeholders, background information to support decision making, general information about the project and its objectives for the purpose of raising the profile of the work of the project and the team, and specific information aimed at increasing understanding and support of the work and objectives of the project. Presentations will be successful when the content and delivery take the following into account. Firstly, the audience, of course, their expectations and their needs, and the needs and objectives of the project and project team. Tools and techniques. Number 4, project management information systems. These systems can ensure the stakeholders can easily retrieve the information they need in a timely way. Project information is managed and distributed through a variety of tools, including electronic project management tools, project management software, meeting and virtual office support software, web interfaces, specialized project portals and dashboards, and collaborative work tools. Electronic communications management, email, fax and voicemail, audio, video and web conferencing, and websites and web publishing. Also social media management, websites, web publishing and blogs and applications which offer the opportunity to engage with stakeholders and form online communities. Tools and techniques number 5, project reporting. Project reporting is the act of collecting and distributing project information. Project information is distributed to many groups of stakeholders and should be adapted to provide information at an appropriate level, format and detail for each type of stakeholder. The format may range from just simple communication, which could even be just a phone call or a sketch on a whiteboard, to more elaborate custom reports and presentations. Information may be prepared regularly or on an exception basis. While work performance reports are the output of the monitor and control project work process, this process, Managed Communications, develops ad hoc reports, project presentations, blogs and other types of communications about the project. Tools and techniques number 6, interpersonal and team skills. These can be active listening. Active listening includes acknowledging, clarifying, confirming, understanding and removing barriers that adversely affect comprehension. I've covered active listening several times before in this lesson. Also, there would be conflict management, cultural awareness, meeting management. Meeting management is taking steps to ensure that meetings meet their intended objectives effectively and efficiently. But I keep saying effectively and efficiently. What's the difference between the two? Effective means doing the right thing. Efficient means doing things right. The following steps should be used for planning meetings. Prepare and distribute the agenda, stating the objectives of the meeting. Ensure that the meetings start and finish at the published time. It's been my experience, most meetings start at the scheduled time but usually run well beyond it, so you need to keep a tight rein on them. Ensure the appropriate participants are invited and attend. Stay on topic. I know it's good to share about what the kids are doing and what you're doing on holiday and your latest car, but please try and stay on topic to keep people interested. And if you stay on topic, people are more likely to turn up to the next meeting. Manage expectations, issues and conflicts during the meeting. Record all actions and those who have been allocated the responsibility for completing the actions. Networking. Networking is interacting with others to exchange information and to develop context. This is done in a more laid-back, relaxed, informal atmosphere. Networks provide project managers and their teams with access to informal organizations to solve problems, influence actions of other stakeholders and increase stakeholder support for the work and outcomes of the project, thus improving performance. You've probably heard of water cooler meetings and car park meetings. These and any other meetings in this relaxed informal atmosphere can be good opportunities for networking. And in fact, one of the companies I used to work for, I used to keep asking to meet with the CEO. He was always too busy, couldn't meet me. And I discovered that he used to go shopping every Thursday at the local supermarket. So I started going shopping on Thursday too. And I used to bump into him. We would chat there and get things done on my project. So it doesn't always have to be formal. Political awareness. Everyone has their own agenda, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you can see what the agenda is, you have the opportunity for gaining their support and working towards a win-win outcome. Tools and techniques number 7, meetings. Meetings support the actions defined in the communication strategy and communications plan. Nothing more I can say about that. Managed communications, outputs. Output number 1, project communications. The project communications artifacts may include performance reports, deliverable status, schedule progress, costs incurred, presentations, and any other information required by stakeholders. Output number 2, project management plan updates. Would be any change to the project management plan. They have to go through the organization's change control process via a change request, just in case you've forgotten. I've said it 1,000 times. Components of the project management plan may be updated as a result of carrying out this process include communications management plan. When changes are made to the project communications approach as a result of this process, these changes are reflected in the project communication plan. The stakeholder engagement plan. Stakeholder engagement requirements and agreed upon communication strategies are updated as a result of this process. Output number 3, project document updates, would include the issue log, the lessons learned register, which we've talked about many times. We'd have the project schedule. The project schedule may be updated to reflect the status of communication activities. There's a risk register because you might have come up with new risks associated with managing communications. The stakeholder register would be updated with information regarding communications activities with project stakeholders, and that brings us to the end of Managed Communications. The next lesson is 10.3, Monitor Communications. And please read the corresponding chapter of the PMBOK guide before watching the video, and that will help me communicate with you better.